Right, let's just dive straight into this. Imagine for a second that your body is this magnificent, heavily guarded fortress. But day in and day out, this fortress is completely surrounded. I mean, it is constantly under siege by these invisible, microscopic invaders that are just desperately trying to breach your walls. Today, in this explainer, we're going to decode the incredible biological warfare that is literally happening inside you right now. We'll explore the attackers, your body's absolutely brilliant defensive strategies, and, of course, the medical reinforcements we've developed to tip the scales in our favor. We're going to break down the science of infection and response in detail, but don't worry, we're going to make it incredibly easy to understand.
So here's our battle plan for today. We've got Section 1, Meet the Microscopic Invaders. Then Section 2, How Pathogens Spread. Moving on to Section 3, the body's first defenses, and Section 4, the immune system army. Finally, we'll wrap up with Section 5, vaccines, the training drill, and Section 6, medicines and drug development.
All right, Section 1, Meet the Microscopic Invaders. Because, to defeat the enemy, you first have to actually know the enemy.
In the world of biology, we call these invaders pathogens. Now, a pathogen is simply a microorganism that causes an infectious, communicable disease in plants or animals. And communicable just means it can spread from one organism to another. They're basically the microscopic bad guys responsible for everything from, say, a mildly annoying sore throat, all the way to severe, life-threatening conditions. Let's take a closer look at one of our main enemies here, the bacterial pathogen. A bacterium is a prokaryotic cell, which basically means it doesn't have a true central nucleus. Its genetic material is just kind of floating freely in the cytoplasm. But, don't let that simple structure fool you for a second. Once they get inside your body, bacteria multiply incredibly fast through a process called binary fission. And as this massive colony grows, they release these really harmful poisons called toxins. It's actually these toxins that damage your tissues and make you feel so awful. But bacteria are just one branch of the invading forces. There are actually 4 main types of pathogens we need to talk about. First, we have bacteria, which cause diseases like salmonella food poisoning and gonorrhea. Then we have viruses, which are even smaller and non-cellular. Now, here's the crazy thing. Unlike bacteria that multiply outside your cells, viruses actually invade inside your body cells. They hijack your own biochemistry to reproduce, and then they cause the cell to literally burst. This cell damage is exactly what causes diseases like measles or HIV. We also have fungi, which can cause plant diseases like rose block spot, and finally, protists, which are often these eukaryotic parasites responsible for diseases like malaria. Moving on to Section 2, the breach, how pathogens spread. We know who the invaders are, but how do they actually breach our defenses in the first place? Well, pathogens are master hitchhikers, for sure, and they use 4 primary routes of transmission. The first is direct contact, so touching contaminated surfaces or spreading through sexual contact. The second is via water, like drinking from a contaminated supply. The third, and this is a really common one, is through the air. Think of droplet inhalation. When someone with measles sneezes, they expel thousands of tiny, pathogen-filled droplets that you can just simply breathe right in. And finally, we have vectors. These are animals that carry the pathogen without actually getting sick themselves, like a mosquito delivering the malaria protist right into your bloodstream with a single bite. Okay, Section 3, the castle walls, the body's first defenses. Thankfully, your body covers all its bases. First up, your skin acts as this massive physical barrier. It even produces antimicrobial secretions to kill pathogens right on contact. But what if you breathe a pathogen in? Well, the hairs and sticky mucus in your nose are right there to trap it. Further down, your trachea and bronchi also secrete mucus, and they're lined with these tiny microscopic hairs called cilia. These cilia constantly beat back and forth to waft the trapped pathogens back up to your throat so they can be swallowed. And if you do happen to eat or swallow a pathogen, it plunges straight into a literal vat of hydrochloric acid in your stomach, which pretty much destroys it instantly. It's an absolutely incredible defense system. But pathogens are relentless, right? So what happens if you get a deep cut or a particularly tough virus actually manages to survive that stomach acid? What happens when the invaders finally break through those outer castle walls? That brings us to Section 4, the specialized army, the immune system. This is when the alarm bells really start ringing. The main foot soldiers of this internal army are your white blood cells, and their primary tactic is something called phagocytosis. Honestly, it's an amazing, almost brutal biological process. Here's how it works. The white blood cell identifies the pathogen, physically moves towards it, and literally engulfs or ingests it, just eats it whole. Once the pathogen is trapped inside, the white blood cell releases these really powerful enzymes to digest and completely destroy the invader.
Now, to really understand the immune system's next level of defense, we need to do a quick jargon buster, because these three terms get mixed up all the time. First is an antigen. This is a unique molecule sitting on the surface of the invading pathogen. Think of it like a little enemy flag. Second is an antibody. This is a Y-shaped protein produced by your white blood cells that perfectly matches that specific enemy's antigen. Antibodies stick to the pathogens, clumping them all together so they're super easy to destroy. And third, antitoxins. Remember those harmful poisons bacteria release? Well, white blood cells produce antitoxins specifically to neutralize those bacterial poisons before they can actually hurt your tissues.
So the really crucial point here is what happens after the battle is won. Some of those white blood cells actually stick around in your body as memory cells. This means if that exact same pathogen ever dares to invade again, your immune system recognizes its antigens instantly. The memory cells start pumping out those specific antibodies incredibly fast, destroying the pathogen before it can even reproduce enough to make you feel ill. Boom, you're now officially immune.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, Vaccines, the Training Drill. The absolute genius of a vaccine is that we introduce a tiny, safe amount of a dead or inactivated pathogen directly into the body. And because it still has those enemy flag antigens on its surface, your white blood cells treat it like a real active threat. They spring into action and manufacture the exact antibodies needed to defeat it. The weakened pathogen is quickly cleared out, but those crucial memory cells, they stay behind. So you've successfully trained your army without ever risking an actual war. And when we scale this up, we achieve something called herd immunity. When a large enough portion of the population is vaccinated and becomes immune, the pathogen basically runs out of vulnerable hosts to infect. It simply can't spread. This breaks the entire chain of transmission, which effectively protects the small number of people who, maybe for medical reasons, can't get vaccinated themselves. It's exactly how we've managed to control devastating diseases like polio and measles. All right, Section 6, Reinforcements, Medicines, and Drug Development. Because sometimes when our internal army just isn't enough, we have to call in some external help.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to understand the difference between the two main types of medicines we use. Antibiotics, like penicillin, are these really powerful chemicals that actually kill bacterial pathogens inside the body without damaging your own cells. However, and this is a big however, they are completely useless against viruses simply because viruses hide inside your own body cells. Painkillers, on the other hand, like aspirin, they only treat the symptoms. They might soothe your headache or bring down your fever, but they do absolutely nothing to kill the pathogen itself.
But listen to this. Our heavy reliance on antibiotics has created a massive global crisis. Every single year, it's estimated that humans use a staggering 100,000 tons of antibiotics. And here's the truly shocking part. Over 2/3 of that huge number isn't even for sick humans. It's given to totally healthy farm animals just to prevent illness and promote faster growth. Exposing bacteria to this literal ocean of antibiotics triggers random mutations, which allows the absolute strongest bacteria to survive the drugs and reproduce. This is exactly what creates those terrifying superbugs that are totally resistant to our medicines. So, to fight back against these resistant strains, we desperately need new medicines. But where do they even come from? Well, historically, our greatest medicinal discoveries came straight out of nature. The painkiller aspirin, that originated from the bark of willow trees. The heart drug digitalis came from beautiful but highly toxic foxglove plants. And the first antibiotic, penicillin, was famously discovered entirely by accident when Alexander Fleming noticed a clear ring of space around some penicillium mold growing on his bacteria plates. The mold was just naturally producing a chemical that killed the bacteria. Talk about a happy accident.
Today, most new drugs are synthesized in labs by chemists, but they still have to go through a highly rigorous testing pipeline. First up is preclinical testing. This is done in labs on cells, tissues, and live animals just to check for basic safety. If it passes that, it moves to clinical trials. Here, very low doses are given to healthy human volunteers to monitor for any side effects. Finally, the drug is given to actual patients to find the optimal dose and really test its efficacy. To keep things totally objective, this is usually set up as a double-blind trial. Some patients receive a fake drug, a placebo, and neither the patients nor the doctors know who got what until the very end.
This incredibly strict drug development pipeline is absolutely vital for our safety, but it's also incredibly slow and really costly. And this leaves us locked in a terrifying biological race. With superbugs like MRSA mutating and developing resistance way faster than we can synthesize and test new antibiotics, our primary reinforcements are starting to fail. So the ultimate question we're left with is this. As these microscopic invaders continue to evolve, how will the human fortress survive the next major siege? It's a massive question that scientists are racing to answer every single day. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring all the incredible biology happening right under your skin.